Hey everybody, and welcome to the Drafting Offers Podcast, the podcast where you get to vote for each episode's draft champ. We're realtors from Southern Ontario, but this is not another real estate podcast. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, catch every episode on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on social at the Drafting Offers Podcast. Here are your hosts, Brad Warner, Scott Morgan, and John Fielding.
All right, welcome back. For those on YouTube, don't forget to give us a subscribe. We are trying to build our numbers and we are doing quite well. Just want to keep that ball rolling into the New Year's. And if you're just listening to our voices on Spotify, don't forget to subscribe so you're automatically updated when our new episodes come out. Guys, how we doing?
With the weather and being kind of getting into November, we've got some cold November rain. It's a Guns N' Roses video happening outside my window today. I don't know about you guys, but it's a little miserable right now.
It is. I mean, here, so last night I had like a listing appointment up near like Tweed. I left my house. I live in Belleville and it was just raining and it got up there and it was freezing rain and the buses were all late and everything. It was crazy. You know, it started to feel a little more like winter. And I know that it's becoming winter time, closer to winter time when people start texting me about bus cancellations. Because I don't know if you guys know this,
I was going to bring this up, Brad. Said buses.
I am the sponsor for the local bus cancellations on the radio. So I always know when there's some bus cancels because I always get some texts about it.
So I feel like we've done a few grind your gears episodes. Do you think you might be a name that is a grinded gear to people that they're like, okay, my kids don't have a bus ride because Brad Warner is in my corner telling me that no one's picking my kid up today?
I was at an open house one time. I didn't think the guy knew who like I was in any way. He was just about to leave. We hardly talked the whole time. And then he's like, I might want to come back and see it. And I was like, oh, just let me know. And he goes, as long as the buses aren't cancel. And he was just like, I just looked at him.
You give him the wink and the finger guns?
I was just like, oh man, like you've been here for a few minutes. Like I'm sure you've been just waiting to say something the whole time.
All that says to me is that advertising money is well spent because they know your name.
Hey, I have a great sales rep there, Jamie Vinag.
Oh, I know Jamie.
Yeah,
what's up, Jamie?
But yeah, it's been good. I mean, it's the market's different, and we're gonna get into that. Obviously, I'm staying positive, optimistic, staying on that grind out there.
We all know when you get to springtime and there's a flood of inventory or a flood of buyers, or if rates start to go down, there's gonna be people that are on the sidelines that are hopping back in. There's always an opportunity for someone, and it's just finding who that is and trying to get them rocking and rolling. It's just hard to get people off the sidelines, but people that are on the sidelines that are going to regret not getting in sooner than later because we're due for an uptick. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, especially when somebody gets a pre-approval from a bank a couple of months ago and they don't end up finding a house and their pre-approval might expire, like the rate that they've locked in might expire. So they might have to kind of go through the process again and go through the approval process. I mean, if you're going to the same lender, same broker, mortgage agent, whatever, I'm sure they can kind of do it fairly quickly. But the banks might see a bit of an uptick in requests now because people are starting to kind of filter back in and test the waters a little bit, and they're seeing prices come down just a bit, like just to where they kind of should be. And we talked about interest rates. We've beaten that to death on this podcast, but
do it again, John.
Let's just do it one more time.
Do it again, one more time.
Put some more.
I got a little something to say about mortgage rates too.
Into some interest rates, exactly. Well, I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot to contribute about interest rates specifically, but I can tell you what they do to houses and the people's buying mentality and buying habits. That's for sure.
Last week wasn't really talked about much. I saw a lot of funny reels and memes going around. Fixed rates actually went down. That was a great sign. So when you're talking about getting pre-approved, if you have not been, now might be a time to lock in for 120 days at what it is. And if you have been pre-approved, maybe chat with your lender to see if that's a number now that you could maybe sneak onto. People, when they got their house, whatever their mortgage was, they weren't banking on whatever's happening now to happen. Exactly. And when that does, when it comes time for renewal, you have a short period of time. Like you guys both went through it within the last year. Like I know, Brad, you brought up when Carlin was on that you got a call late at night saying, hey, we're dropping everything. We got to do this before rates go up. So
I can't, I know I said it, I'll say it again. I said it on that podcast, but it's important to be in touch with your mortgage broker or mortgage agent, financial advisor, whatever it is, when you're coming up for renewal, whether it's 6 months in advance or, as you're getting closer, because when they did come down, down. If they could go back up. I mean, I don't know much about bonds. So if the bonds go in the opposite direction, you're going to want to be locked in at the rate that they just went to, so it's important. And the same thing, I know we said for buyers that you go and get your pre-approvals done. Same thing, like you can lock in a rate when you're coming up for renewal. So should be in touch with your mortgage broker. Absolutely.
For sure. And same thing, slight little plug for realtors, but get in touch with your realtor the moment you're given that thought of we might move next year, because timing, prep work, there's so many things. And I've hit this nail on the head too many times on here. The amount of times you get a phone call either to see a place because it's their dream home and they want to lock it down immediately and they've done no prep work, or they've done work and it's been the wrong work.
And I've been working with some buyers lately, and it's almost refreshing because it's not just about mortgage rates. It's they're out there and they have something specific they want. And we've been looking for quite a long time, and we've seen lots of houses. And it's not about the interest rates. It's just about finding that perfect house. And, that's one of my favorite things about being a realtor. Is really, we're going to find that perfect house and then we're going to do whatever it takes for them to get it.
You're helping people get into the next stage of their life, right? It's not just about a transaction. It's helping people get to that next stage of their life and being a part of that process for them. So that is a big thing. And that is what kind of helps me. You're feeling a little down and you're feeling a little stressed and you're kind of like, will this work out? Will this not work out? What am I doing here? Like, is this the right job for me? And then that, something comes together. That you put a lot of effort into, and a lot of people benefit. And so, it's a good news story for everybody.
But it's that mentality that keeps our business afloat. That's the repeat and referral business. If you're just worried about cramming someone into a house to get that commission check and on to the next one, they're not going to come back. Where if you care, you can give someone an honest opinion saying, for what you've told me, this seems like a fit, or this one doesn't. People will have a lot more respect or take your word with a little bit more emphasis. And when it comes time to move again, or when it comes time for someone very close to them to move, they're going to think of you. So a little behind the scenes of how our business works. But
if you don't have those repeat and referrals, you are spending a lot of money on marketing.
For sure. Or your stress as to where my next deal is going to be coming from to put food on the table, because you don't have that database that you're working. You don't have these conversations of people reaching out 6 to 12 months from now. Like I'm sure you guys were both the same. You probably have a list of people for next year that have told you they're likely to be moving. If someone is thinking of moving and they haven't reached out to you, they plan on reaching out to you, they're looking at things through the internet, through realtor.ca, those kind of sites, and then they're finding that property where, if you've had that conversation, we have a plethora of people that we know. We're into meetings, we're into chatting with colleagues, people from our company or other companies. Sometimes you get the line at homes that are off market that will be coming, that you could maybe say, hey, this is coming up, and get that step ahead of everyone, where it feels like everyone wants to not bother you and do it on their own. And then everything's last minute and you're under the gun, and that's stressful. So again, just can't plug us realtors enough. We're just so great, aren't we?
We didn't plan on doing a business plug here.
But look at us. Yeah, I mean, we are in a little slower period. We are talking about an article here that will probably be up when this is edited, that will just talk about the housing market going into hibernation. So that talks about a little play on words with the winter around the corner, Christmas is around the corner, and the market being slower. So what are you guys seeing out there right now? Can you confirm, deny?
I found this is interesting because it is coming from Korea, a lot of these quotes and everything, which Korea Canadian Real Estate Association.
Let's call this Korea like it is. Just because I can just see right now when the captions come on this post that we're going to do, and it just says Korea.
What am I saying?
People are wondering, you're saying,
what am I saying?
Korea.
I heard you say
it's not South or North Korea. It's Korea.
Korea. Maybe this is a Belleville twang.
Could be. Sorry, I need to discriminate.
Anyways, the Canadian Real Estate Association had a lot of the quotes that are part of this article anyways, talking about the market and how it's changing, and it's in hibernation right now. And I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm sitting over here and disagreeing with what they're saying. I don't think there's anyone out there that could say, oh man, the sales are flying off the chart. It's not the reality at all. The sales are extremely down. I know in my area, they're down month over month quite a bit, and they're down year over year slightly. And we're not talking last year being especially October last year, we're not talking about a crazy market then either, No. So are we in hibernation? I would say a little bit. And I feel like they briefly touched on it, but what happens when we come out of this? And that's more of the question is, if somebody bears in hibernation, they're going to wake up one day and they're going to be hungry. I don't think either of you are going to disagree that the market is a little bit slower than it was. How do you think it's going to be happen when it wakes up?
A lot of articles, especially when it comes to real estate, is talking about what's happened, maybe a little bit of what's happening, but it's always based on the numbers. The numbers come out from the month before, and we're already into the future. This is no surprise. The market in August, we had a conversation, is it the market or is it the time of year? It got into the fall market of September and October, and it was slower. We're also talking about slower on average than the last 4 or 5 years, which have been, if you look at the charts, historic years of sales, of growth, of actual average sale price. So we're not far off of those. We're still in good markets. It's just our brains are wired and programmed now to, you throw a sign on the lawn and the house sells. And when that doesn't happen, there's a lot of people that got into the industry during that time that are going, oh dear. And I think it's just buyers looking at things. There's some relief that their prices are maybe settling a little bit based on rates, based on market condition. The fact of the matter is, we've talked about it a million times as well, supply and demand. We still don't have enough supply for the demand of people. And especially with immigration and what that's slated to be over the next 3 to 5 years, we're still going to have that issue. So like you said, Brad, the moment that we start to get some positive news with interest rates, inflation numbers have gone down, which is a step in the right direction for lowering rates. That could be as early as like probably spring to summer of next year that we might see that. The moment that happens is going to be when people jump right back in, and you're now trying to time a market that is already switched because you're going off of the headlines of something that's already been happening for a few weeks to a few months. This is an opportunity for people. Get in, get the rate that you have. Don't lock in for too long, and be strategic with it. And I think there's going to be a lot of people over the next 3 to 5 months that have purchased that over the next 5 to 10 years are going to be very thankful they did.
This is the type of article that makes people on the sidelines think that they can come in and score an incredible deal on a house and get an $800,000 house for $500,000. That's the thing. And that's not the case. That's still not going to happen. The prices are still what they are. Houses are still worth what they were worth, 5 or 6 years ago. Even more so now. Nothing is in the toilet. Like, the market is not crashing. I don't understand why this stuff keeps coming out and why we even have to keep talking about it. The market is not in the toilet.
But these articles are out there. Like, I mean, I have a few listings. I know you guys have some listings right now, and you get some extremely low offers that I have not seen since pre-pandemic, in a sense, I guess, where people are coming in, 100, 150 under. It's kind of just like, holy. And then the agents is like, the market's not as good. Like,
but you can't just blanket statement, well, look at the market just to justify an insane number. Like, there's nothing that's come close to that, where, maybe someone's more inclined to accept a little bit less than the last one that sold, but it's not the sky is falling. And I find that's usually the newer or not as savvy at their job agents that's a blanket statement. That's a get out of jail free card to throw a rough offer in. And if you can actually break it down as to why that makes sense, whether it's the numbers as to where they were in May and June when they peaked this year to now, maybe there's some validity behind that. But to just say, wow, the market's pretty bad right now, so you should accept this one. And
I counter offered a low ball offer, and I sent comparables with it, and I don't know if that's too direct. I actually asked someone, am I being too direct with this person?
No,
but and honestly, we had and I wish, and I was hopeful that we could work together. It's not like I was like, why did you bother doing? Like, no. I want to work together, but I'm trying to show you I already took into account the market's changing, and you guys are getting a great deal even at the price that it's at. The market's different in where you live, Scott, to where John lives, and it's different to where I live, and it's different than Belleville. Belleville's extremely different than Prince Edward County. And last night I was up in Tweed. It's totally different up in Tweed. So it's so important that, like, these are huge blanket statements like John mentioned, but you really need to talk to someone about specific neighborhoods.
It's a different
and someone that knows the neighborhood for sure. There's so many people that now, maybe with things being a little slower, they're, I don't mind driving further than I need to, and is that the local expert that maybe needs directions as to how to even get to this place? So you really need that local person to make sure they're guiding you home.
There's a lot of stats in this article. There's a lot of numbers and percentages percentages and things like that. Also, I should also mention this is a CBC article, and if you want to start talking about journalistic integrity and things like that, this article is largely funded by the Canadian government. So, I mean, they're going to tell you what they want to tell you. It's not to say that like there's no ethics involved in the media, but you got to keep in mind where your news is coming from. And so when it talks about percentages and like fell by this percentage and rose by this percentage and things like that, they're still small percentages. I mean, we're not talking about like in the teens or in the 20%. We're talking about 3%, 5%. Like those are not massive numbers.
There's always going to be someone who says,
Always.
I'm going to wait for the bottom of the market, or I'm going to wait to win. Because
Yeah.
it's all about winning. And sometimes I think buyers forget that the sellers also want to win. And in every transaction, everybody wants to feel like they weren't taken advantage of. And that's never going to change. That's just human instinct.
Yeah.
This is like, and the articles again, like back to this articles like this article and other ones, they paint the whole market with one brush, but they also paint the buyers and the sellers with one brush.
Yeah.
Right. It seems like they assume that every buyer is the same. And they assume that every seller is the same, but there's a lot of buyers and sellers that are buying and selling for very different reasons. Right. So one buy, and the interest rates don't necessarily matter. I have a cash buyer. I have a buyer who's looking for a cash purchase right now. Doesn't care about the interest rates because she's buying it cash and it's an investment for her. Other people, like if another seller who's going to be listing soon, it's the time of year. She has to now, like this is the time of year. It's not that she gets to pick whatever time of year. This is the time of year she has to sell. So the motivation is different for everybody.
Anyway,
yeah.
I
feel like just to wrap this up, maybe one last thing on my end is just that, and they mentioned this article that the affordability is almost at the worst that it's been, and it might get a little bit worse. Who knows? It depends. But I think when this hibernation, we come out of this hibernation, if that's what we're in, the market will be dependent on what the interest rates are. It really will. If the interest rates come down, it's going to be a crazy market. If the interest rates stay the same or go up, it might not be crazy. But I don't think we have that crystal ball to be able to tell anybody what the rates are going to do. But I do know that the inflation numbers seem to be getting better. And when I'm talking to people in my community anyways, whether it's a contractor or restaurant owner or real estate agents, things aren't, as lucrative right now as they once were. I'm hearing, especially people who are working on new developments, I know this one guy, he had a crew of 4 different crews of people that were bricklayers for 3 years, and now he's just one crew. This is the result of what's been going on and the changes that are happening. And I don't think we have that crystal ball to see this is exactly what's going to happen in the next 5 months of our economy, but that's just going to play a huge factor in what goes on anyways.
But how long of this style of market until, or you say affordability, you're hitting the nail on the head. How long until this just becomes the norm, and you're either going to buy or sell and not put off your life, and this is what it is. Like people need to digest things. I think that's why there's also a lagging indicator as to when the rates actually increased to when it started to have more of a difference, other than at the get-go, it's public perception of, oh, that's changed, let's see. And then after a while, people get used to it. It won't be long before it is what it is. And you're either going to buy or you're going to sell, or people that have a ton of money and a ton of investment properties just start buying more and they own everything. So Brad, you talked about heading to Tweed yesterday to show property. Am I right?
Sure. Yes, sure.
Did you encounter anything good or bad about it? Because that kind of leads into our topic of our draft this week, which is...
What are you talking about?
This has nothing to do with Tweed.
So
that
Brad,
was a huge stretch, and caveat, I was in Thomasburg.
Oh,
that's your
I know.
family. Your
I know.
family
I know
there.
someone in the Thomasburg. We've had some stories of showings that we've had that have been funny or scary or good or bad. But we this week are going to be drafting on the worst things to encounter when showing a property. So this could be a plethora of things. This could be, well, I won't even get into it too much. We'll just get into what we will either see or experience that would be off-putting and not that we want to see for our buyers.
Yeah, but let's give Scott his flowers here. He won again. He won again the draft last week.
Not by much.
By one vote.
It's been to the last second, 3 weeks in a row. It's been by one vote, and then the week prior when Brad won, it was a tie. and we had to have John do the vote off there. I think he's still dealing with some PTSD from having to make that choice. But it's been tight the last 4 weeks.
In the last 4 weeks, I've only won once, or last 4 drafts, sorry. I've only won once, and he's beat me by 3 total votes.
Like, if we're talking fantasy sports and that's how you went 3 weeks in a row, you're not feeling good about it. But
and from what I hear, it's all the mail-in votes. It's not even the normal votes. It's mail-in votes that are messing us up. So, and I don't
talking about mail-in votes.
People are mailing in their votes, and Scott's writing them down on his side.
But are they votes for him? I don't understand what you're talking about.
John, you have to realize he's just BSing right now.
I don't keep track of the votes.
U.S. election?
I don't keep track of the results. Scott keeps track of the results, and from what he tells me, people are like physically mailing in votes for him that he's counting on. And I'm not getting any mail-in votes.
This guy, if you were Pinocchio, your nose would just be through the camera because you're just making stuff up. I would gladly, I've said this before, if you just will actually take the login information for our Instagram channel, if you just could take it, we'll send it to you. You're more than welcome to do this. But we've actually, our votes have gone up in terms of number of votes, which is awesome. So if you are listening or watching, feel free to share this. If you're seeing our polls and not voting, just pick a team. The higher the numbers, the better this gets. And whether you're listening or not, that part is awesome to watch as it comes in, because those 3 days of voting, it goes different ways all the time. So it's a lot of fun for us. But thank you again for supporting. So worst things to encounter when showing a property. And again, if we can get a sponsor for a lot of people's favorite part of this, which is the wheel of names. So we're going to
especially the Spotify people.
Spotify people love it because they can see all the colors, all the names. So we're going to do a little spin here, ripping around. I feel like it's going to be John this week. What do you think?
I don't think so. But I would also...
It's always Scott. It's always Scott.
No.
This is ridiculous.
What are you doing?
I don't even want, like, it's getting where I don't want to win the selection of
spin it again.
John can edit it.
Cut that whole thing out.
Okay. I'll go second. Who wants to go first here? Anyone got a 1-1 they want?
Yeah.
John first, Scott second, Brad third. So this is the worst things to encounter when showing a property. So this is either for the buyers or the realtors, or both.
When you're with the buyers and you're doing a showing, these are the worst things to see. Okay, John, kick it off.
I'm going to start with this one. This is going to be this is absolutely a 1-1 pick. Okay. It's the worst thing to encounter when showing a property is somebody naked in the home. Okay. Doesn't matter what they're doing. Is somebody naked? Okay. Naked body parts, anything like that. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize that you were coming today. I didn't know that there was an appointment. All the like playing dumb, like nobody ever told me there was an appointment. It's like, okay, can you put pants on, please?
Have you ever had that happen to you?
Half naked, not fully half naked.
Scott?
So specifically, one time, actually,
Me too.
It was very early on. It was tenanted. I usually find it's when it's a tenanted place because those tenants are often never told of the thing, or they just don't.
Yeah. There's an extra line of communication that they have to go through to get the showing information. So sometimes the tenant is not always informed right away.
We went in that basement apartment, and that gentleman was sleeping and was not clothed, but luckily had a sheet on. But that was it. So you want to make sure that naked is thrown in there, not just the homeowner,
not just people, naked people,
not just
people without clothes on in the house that you want to buy.
I had it happen to me once, and I think every time I'm like. And as soon as I walk in the door, hello.
Yeah.
If I think there's even a chance.
Anyone.
The amount of times I'll do that, and your buyers are like, is someone supposed to be home? You're like, I don't know. We don't
just
want
in
it to be
case.
bad.
Yeah.
Just in case. Okay.
Right.
Naked homeowner. That's a nice one.
That'll
be an
resident.
interesting graphic picture, I think.
We'll find a creative way to do that. All right. Numero dos.
I'm going to take one that it's super off-putting, whether you're visiting people or whether you're at a showing. But the moment you open that door and the smoke smell hits you, it's so hard to get rid of. And the amount of times you're with buyers, and we've literally been in the front door and they're like, nope, it doesn't matter. So smoke smell.
You know, it's been smoked in for 50 years. And the smoke is so ingrained into the fabric of the house. It's like right down to the wood. There's no way you can get that smoke
yellow.
smell. Everything is yellow. The air ducts haven't been cleaned. Like it can just be the worst. And I mean, look, it's a smell. You can get smells out. You can spend all kinds of time and money trying to get smells out. Sometimes it'll always just be there. It'll always be there in the background just for you to remember that day, you know, or you walked into your brand new house and it smelled like cigarette smoke.
Thanks for I don't need to say another thing. Thanks, John.
Hey, you're welcome.
Brad, you get two in a row here, buddy.
I'm just gonna go with unfinished renovations when things are
Unfinished
half
renos.
done. When things
Yeah.
are half done, I've been in
And
place before where like half the floor is down.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and you're wondering if there was an issue and they just didn't fix it, or if they just ran out of them. And then you're wondering if that's what I can see, that's a problem. What else is there? So that
Mhm.
is, it's a good pick.
I had to list a house with half renovations done, and of course, every buyer came in and said, "Where's the baseboards?" They're at Home Depot. Go get
Home
them.
Depot, yeah. Well, that's the
Where's
other
the
thing is
baseboards? I
it's
don't know.
not move in ready. So you're just
Yeah,
immediately know that there's work and money to be spent. So
yeah,
they're
yeah.
going, how do I budget that into the price or my
Mhm.
budget? So all right,
Exactly.
Brad, first pick, second round.
Visible signs of mold when you can see the mold in the
You can actually
house.
see it. Yeah,
That's a tough one.
I got that on my list too.
I'm not a home inspector, and if I can go, oh, there's mold here. It's not good. It's not a
Yep.
good one.
Yep.
I have been into a house that was like the entire thing was mold, and this was a house that needed to be either knocked down or gutted, like more than I'd ever seen. But it was mold from all the way up to the second story, and then we looked downstairs, and obviously there's going to be water right in the basement, and there was so much water in the basement that the hot water tank was just floating around in the
Oh
basement.
man.
Stop. Are
Now,
you serious?
were you made aware of that before you went? Like, is it like bring a
I
mask
I
or?
had
Bring
yes,
flippers.
Yeah,
we
because
were
that
told
like
to
that
wear masks. Yeah.
legally, I think they have to let you know.
Yeah. It was during COVID too, so I think we might even had masks already, but yeah, we definitely wore masks for that one.
There's a few here that kind of go hand in hand. I'll say one that like you would immediately see, and that's stains in the ceiling. So clearly there's
Yeah.
water somewhere, and you're like, where is this coming from? Is this old? Is this new? It's going to lead to your last pick, which is something you don't want. But I'm going to say ceiling stains or
Yeah,
water stains.
you never want to encounter that because you know that there's a huge issue. You know that there's a bigger issue than just the color of the tile or the color of the drywall. You know that there's going to be something under there above that that needs immediate attention. It could be very expensive. So that's
Yeah,
something you
and
never want to encounter.
exactly. As a homeowner and you're selling, you're kind of that should be something that you have a conversation about before you even list, because sometimes it's as simple as the bathtub overflowed or there was an issue with the toilet one time and that water then went down below and now there's a stain in your family room ceiling. So there's no active problem. It's just, oh, we never fixed it. It's like, well, maybe do that because this is a second round pick in the draft of worst things to see. So
Because every buyer is going to see that and ask about it. You've been there. We walk
And-
around and ceilings are white and they're looking and looking and looking. Or there's even a patchwork.
Yep.
And you can tell that they've patched it.
the worst is when you got the popcorn ceiling too, and then it has been repaired.
Yeah.
And now you never match that the same. So like, what happened here?
Exactly.
Wish I knew for you.
And then you have to tell them the history of the house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, this is a 200-year-old house, but I'm going to let you know every year. But going full circle to what we were just talking about, when you're in a competitive market and there you got a lot to choose from, those little things can be the factor as to why someone would go to another house over yours. So
Yeah.
Okay, I get to. So I'm going to go with another smell, and it's cat pee. It's going to be an obvious one. It smells like sulfur. It just you can tell what it is immediately when you walk into the house. You're like, it smells like sulfur. It smells like rotten eggs. It just stinks. You're just
right
like
in the
cats.
face.
It just smacks you right in the face. And I'm allergic to cats. So as soon as I go into a house and it smells like cats, my allergies just start to they just go right into like from 0 to 100 in a second as soon as I walk in that door. So
are you, if there's no sign of smell or visible sign of, say, a dish or anything, can you tell if it's a cat house just from walking in?
It depends on.
Is that your hidden superpower for realtor superpower?
There's a cat in here. Yeah, I can kind of tell. I can usually tell if there's a cat or a rabbit or something because like the dander just like, or a horse. But the
rabbit, so
usually
not
it's
an
a
Easter
rabbit.
fan?
It's a rabbit or a rabbit, cat, and horse have similar DNA makeup as far as their dander goes, from what I have heard, and I know very well that I'm allergic to all three of those things. So it's a cat. It's more the cat pee smell though, because that's the thing that's very off-putting is like the cat pee smell because it's in carpets.
And again, it hits you in the face the moment you walk in. Like that's an immediate. So
have you been in like a really bad like actual sulfur house, like from a well?
I don't think, not recently. No, I don't think so. I don't think I have.
I did show one. This isn't that long ago, maybe 6 months or so ago. There was this house. We went in, strong sulfur smell in this house. So it was only like 3 or 4 years old, this house, and it smelled so strongly. One of the clients actually had to leave. So there was 2 houses built beside each other, and I knew that in that area there was sulfur issues sometimes. So I actually went and knocked on the next door neighbor's house because they're built at the exact same time.
Yeah.
And I went over, I'm like, does your house smell like sulfur? And he said, it did. It did when I first moved in. He like came and showed me like the holding tank. That's how you get rid of it. And there's like a whole process to it. And we priced it out how much it was going to cost to get rid of the smell forever with a professional. And it's crazy how much of an effect on the price that it had on that house compared to how much it would have cost to rectify it.
Yeah.
Like the price was probably down like at least 70,000 to what I thought it should sell for because of the sulfur.
That's why we're doing a topic. That's why this is the draft topic, because that's like the first thing, right? So it's the first thing that you encounter, and it's the thing that kind of like sets you off in the wrong direction immediately. And you start to have these big numbers in your head, not necessarily realizing that it may not necessarily be a huge number to fix it. And so that kind of puts you off immediately. And then all of a sudden you've written this house off when it actually could be a great property. So
yeah,
someone got a good deal, but
thing is, though, it's also a compounding thing where you get that immediately off the bat, and then all of a sudden, oh, there's a little bit of this or that. Like, I don't want to tip picks, but if the littler things now start adding up because you're like, well, we already have this to deal with. Cat piss is the
cat pee.
Sorry about breaking into a story on your pick there, John.
Cat pee. No, that's okay. 3, first pick, third round. Well, this is another thing that you don't want to encounter. It could definitely take away from the value of the property by a lot. Is evidence of a meth lab.
Grow up.
Not a grow up.
Oh, you want Strictly Breaking Bad, or
I don't know. I was kind of thinking about this because I have both of those things now that we've mentioned grow up. I've got both of those things on my list, but I think they're different. And one of the reasons that they're different is because a grow up, I shouldn't be saying this because somebody might pick grow up, but a meth lab is very, very dangerous in terms of its like combustibility, explosivity, and things that can happen to actually damage or blow up or seriously damage the house. Whereas a grow up seems to be like over time, it can ruin the house, right? So it's the heat and the humidity and the moisture and like the ductwork and those kinds of things. Basically, you're turning your house into a greenhouse, and your house is not built to be a greenhouse. Whereas the meth lab can be a lot more destructive immediately. So I'd say the evidence of a meth lab is probably way worse to me than the evidence of a grow up.
Okay.
Like, so you're taking meth lab?
Why not?
How do you know the difference between a meth lab or if there's just a chemist living there?
Yeah,
that's a Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul fan.
I don't know.
This week,
I don't know if it was a chemist. I mean, if I could look into the history and look at the owner's name and maybe do a little bit of investigative work and be able to feel like, okay, well, all that stuff is there because this person does that for a living and it's legal. It's all above board. Yeah. Well, you can say, yeah, I mean, I guess if we can, if we want to kind of break it down, it's probably
totally your call. No, give them a
completely. If you want meth lab, by all means. But I feel like if you go a little more encumbersome of all of it, you're welcome to have it all.
Yeah, I don't know. Just say drugs.
Drug lab,
drug production.
I'm gonna take a leaky basement / foundation. Like you got a crack in the foundation, there's a leak, and you can see water that's there, or you can if you get foundation that's been repaired, you're getting lifetime warranty on that. So it's either not going to leak, or if it does, it's taken care of. But people see that was done and they're going, ooh, or you're walking around the exterior during that home inspection and they bring up cracks. It's I love my home inspector because he's going to tell you that every house gets cracks. Yeah. It's a matter of keeping an eye on them. And it's a matter of you're keeping an eye on what's sitting there. If there was an open hole into your window was wide open, it doesn't matter unless there's water there. So if you can, that was an education for me when I first started. Was I just pictured cracks and I'm like, this is terrible, but that's not the case. But leaky basement or crack foundation,
people get worried and concerned about things that they don't always understand, and so having that education to them and saying it's not the end of the world, just keep an eye on it is usually
the lack of education mixed with lack of knowledge of what it'll cost to fix. That's where, and you just talked about the sulfur smell. As much as that's a large number, it's not nearly as large as the deal you're getting on the place. So
yeah.
Brad would have snuck in and scooped that place up, no problem.
I kind of wish it wasn't so far away from where I'd want to live. But anyways, back to the sulfur.
All right.
But yeah, I always do the old when I look in the basement basement to see if there's water damage. To see, it's so easy to see because all you have to do is look like 3 feet up on the drywall if it's drywall basement, because you can tell if there's insured work done, because they don't take all the drywall down, they just take like the bottom 3
The bottom
feet.
part, yeah.
And you can see it so quickly. But yeah, I mean, it's just, in my opinion, it's like we'll just get a home inspection done.
Yeah, you're up. You get 2 in a row here, Brad.
I'm gonna go with loud neighbors. Do not like going into a house and when you're doing your showing, you can hear the neighbors next door during the showing.
It's true.
Yeah.
Even
What if-
disruptive neighbors, like if you might have those people that party like crazy and you get that evening showing and they're just out back just ripping bongs on a Tuesday night and you're going, oh boy, this is not where I want to raise my family. So, and you can't choose those neighbors. You could have the best house in the world, but if your neighbors stink, we've done the bad neighbors draft actually.
When you show up to see the house and you have that neighbor that immediately comes out and they're like, oh, so you're interested in the whatever place. So yeah. And they just go on and on and on. And it's like, I don't need to hear all of these kinds of things. And they say, yeah, well, it's a great neighborhood. Like just the annoying neighbor who just kind of like sometimes will either drop a huge bomb that you don't want to necessarily, or that you don't know about.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, is that the place where the old lady died in her thing? It's like, I didn't need to know that, and I didn't know that. Now you've just said it in front of my clients, and of course we're not going to be looking at this house now.
Yeah,
I will say
that might save your bacon though.
Yeah, I love actually talking to the neighbors though. I will say, like, if there's a neighbor outside of their house and I'm showing a house and my clients are, you know what, they don't even really have to be that interested, I'm going to be talking to that neighbor. I'll just walk right over and be like, hey, how's it going today? I just showed this place.
Yeah. Well, that's when you initiate it. Like if you initiate
always.
and go talk to a neighbor, then okay, then that's
shaker.
But if it's just the nosy neighbor that butts in and they're just like,
but if you got that guy or girl walking up to you and you're only in the house for 30 minutes and they're coming up and they're annoying you, then think about if you live there.
Oh yeah, I know.
The house, or you're shoveling or you're cutting your lawn. Like that's not going to get any better.
Okay, this one's a little different. Maybe I don't like walking up when there's a beware of dog sign, but there's no dogs. There's obviously no dogs in the house or live there. It gives me the old, is this a safe neighborhood vibe when I read that. I don't know. It's not for me.
So beware of dog sign or beware of dog sign with no dogs?
With no dogs, yes.
Now, do you think it's because they wanted the dogs to not be there because of the show?
No. When it's so obvious that there's not dogs. Not that there's a problem with having dogs, just that that beware of dog sign is only there to scare off possible intruders.
So there's two other avenues. Like I don't want to tip any picks yet. We can get to it.
It's kind of like those signs that are like, I don't shout, I shoot. like
that's more of a country thing, I think. I guess not a real.
I guess in what I'm trying to get by that, any signs that like be like, this is not a good neighborhood. Like we're worried about people breaking in, and you're showing that house. You're kind of just like, oh, I don't know if that's where you want to live.
I'm just going to get right back into potential problems, and I'm going to say mouse or rat droppings. Like you've got vermin.
You never want to see that in cupboards, open drawers. Like not just on the floor, but go into where they hide. Right. I mean, open up some of the pantry doors and look behind fridges and freezers, or get a flashlight and get in those little cracks. Right. I always bring a flashlight in. There's flashlights on all of our phones and stuff, but I usually bring in a flashlight. Like you really should do that because you'll never see it if you don't go looking for it. So don't be obvious.
It's during home inspection and it's in a utility room or something. But if you're seeing that in the kitchen, like that brings flashbacks to Brad. We went to university together, but at this time we had two separate homes, or one place in Thorold.
I lived in both.
Was awful. You didn't live in this place. Maybe in the summers when we were home, you called it your cottage. Yeah, that's right. You mooched off, and then all of our dishes were gone when we came back. Anyways, side note, it was so bad that you couldn't put cereal boxes without them getting eaten into. There was just droppings all throughout the pantry, and it's funny. There was holes in the wall, like when you picture the cartoons where there's the little mouse with the house door.
Yeah.
I had one of those, and you just knew that's where they were getting in and out of. But that leads to when we were living there, they go behind the walls and you just be laying and you could hear them scurrying up the drywall. It was gross. Mm-hmm. And that's what you have to live in. So when I see those droppings, you don't know how many of them there are. You don't want Mr. Jingles in your house.
Almost just as bad as when you see a mouse trap. You know what I mean?
Same.
It's almost just as bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually had mouse traps on my list. I didn't have the mouse poop.
I have
Yeah.
those little ultrasonic things you plug into the wall, and
Yeah.
they kind of emit an ultras. Like we don't hear it. Dogs and cats don't hear it, but apparently rodents do, and it keeps them away. And I've used them in this house and my last house. Never had a problem with vermin or anything like that. So I
Yeah.
recommend those. Rodents, evidence of rodents.
Of rodents. Yeah. Cool.
You-
All right.
I feel like you took mice in general, but
Mice, rat droppings, because they're the same.
rats are like, well, rats are way worse.
And
All right,
also,
I'll take mouse.
Oh,
I don't care.
rats.
Evidence
Oh.
of mice.
back to me. So
Back to you, 2 in a row.
this is going to be my fourth and my fifth pick. So my fourth pick is going to be air fresheners everywhere. When you walk into a house or a condo or whatever it is, and all it is just Glade plugins every single outlet, and these like air absorbers and things like that. Why? Like, what are you trying to hide? Glade plugins everywhere. The place just smells like a public bathroom. The whole house smells like a public bathroom. It's like, okay, well, I can tell that it's been smoked in, but it's just like it's making it worse. Now it smells like smoking toilet. Like it smells like smoking bathroom. Not like a Glade plugins. Never ever will make your house smell like the thing on the container. Like it's never going to be tropical breeze in your house. Temporary.
It's bathroom and Glade mist. It's not.
Or use poop, or if you use that poopery in the bathroom, it smells like
try to
you
Fruit
spray the toilet. Yeah.
Yeah.
You spray the toilet first. It's red flags all over the
Yeah.
place. Like, what are they hiding? You know, why is it that they have to put one in every single outlet? Why in the bedrooms? All that kind of stuff. So it's just when you have a property full of plugins and air fresheners everywhere, it's like
That's a great pick.
you just
John.
never want to see that.
And a lot of the time, it's just people who are honestly like, oh, we want to present it and have it smelling its best. It's not even that they're trying to hide anything, but the moment you see it, you go, ooh. My wife, very, very sensitive with the smells. So walking in there, she probably have to take off because those things give her migraines. So you're not really doing yourself any favors by having those in.
That's happened to me. Lots of times I go in and it's just smells, and the client kind of turns around and says, I can't handle this.
Yeah,
I've
had that.
We'll have masks on too, right? Because like for years we were showing around, we're showing properties wearing masks and hand sanitizer and all that kind of stuff. But we're walking through, and even with a mask on, you're like, oh, this is awful. Like I just have to go.
Start the last round here, Johnny.
Last round. Round number 5 pick will be creepy dolls. And I'm saying creepy dolls because it's just something that you don't want to encounter when you open up that bedroom door and you just see that like 1800s, circa 1800s Victorian doll just sitting there, and then you look back and it's gone. Like just the creepy dolls, I think, is just what puts me off.
I have a couple stories about that. One I don't want to tell because I'm like scared that like some voodoo stuff is going to happen to me.
Sweet.
I think I told this one where I walked in and there was like dolls like all the way across the top of every single room in the whole house. I think I've told you guys about that before. But in every room, instead of like the wallpaper paper or like crown molding across the top of the house, it was just like nailed in dolls all the way.
Oh, they
around.
were nailed. They weren't like on a rail. They were nailed into the wall.
They were nailed in. When I went to bed that night, like, it was pretty creepy. All those dolls nailed in everywhere. And I told Kristen about it, and I was just like laying there and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And my client, he's not a client, he's a really good friend of mine. He was like texting me, he's like, I'm still thinking about those dolls. I'm like, man, I'm literally sitting here. That's all I could think about.
What was the movie? What was the horror movie? Something Annabelle. Annabelle? Is that the name? I forget what the names of the movies were. I don't know. A lot of people can probably correct me. Something like that. But there was Annabelle. Yeah, that crazy creepy doll. So I gotta say, creepy dolls. Just creepy dolls anywhere.
I find them so creepy. I really do. And then that's all you remember about that room.
Yeah, that house. Like you're never gonna look at that and be like, that's the place I want to live, is where there's 4,000 dolls pinned to the ceiling.
I drive by there all the time. I think about it every single time I drive down that street.
Well, I guess good pick for John.
Dollhouse.
Yeah. Last pick, 5th round. I'm going to take a hoarder house. So when you open the door and you cannot open the door, or the rooms, they even say in the notes before you get there, like, don't go in second bedroom because oftentimes there's someone in the room with the stuff. They're not leaving. It's more of it is what it is, but you just can't see beyond it. It's also the reason why staging is great. I know hoarder is the next level, but if you're just someone who has clutter or a large amount of stuff that needs to be pared down, it's very hard for that buyer to see past that. So that's kind of something you don't want to encounter when you walk in, especially if it's a place that has minimal pictures and then you go and look at it. It's just a disappointment.
It's the damage that those things have done to the house. So the carpet that's just completely ruined, or the mold because of the
smell.
wetness or
Maybe there's a
smell.
cat that's just passed that's in there, and you
I
can't.
mean,
Like a lot of the things that we've drafted might actually go hand in hand with a hoarder house.
it's sad. I mean, a lot of the time there's deeper issues, like deeper rooted issues, and it's a
Yes.
very
Yeah, for
sensitive
sure.
situation to go into a property like that because you don't know what you're walking into. Yeah, and sometimes you've been warned, or at least like the listing agent has said, okay, just keep this in mind when you go in there. This is the reason that the price is so low, or whatever it is. So you just kind of know what to expect. But yeah, that's a big thing. That's definitely something that you never want to experience going to a showing.
No. And there's the difference between a lot of clutter and big furniture and like just boxes of old newspapers and
Yeah.
stuff that's means
Mhm.
nothing, but this person is having an issue. But
Mm-hmm.
that's my pick.
All
Brad,
right.
last but not least.
I feel like you guys have picked like big things, and I'm picking little tiny things here.
The beware of dog sign.
you-
That's very
Well,
niche.
that could
but
be,
and you guys are
maybe that's-
picking like well, I feel like we're on two different drafts.
you could have worded that one so much different, and it would have had more appeal. But I love
I'm
it.
gonna go another little one here.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Little
go
baby.
with faulty lights, and in
Yeah.
particular, flickering lights. I hate
like
it.
that.
Or when you go in a room and you can't turn the lights on, you're just like, all right.
Yeah.
Can't
It
figure
could
out
just
where.
be the light. Could have, should have been just a new light bulb. But now that it's not turning on, it's like we don't know
This
if it's
house is
light
gonna
bulb
catch
or
on
if
fire,
the, if the electrical's not working. You know,
Yeah.
Mhm.
That
I
one
think
too,
so,
with
too.
the flicking of the switch, I'll always look to see if there's actually an overhead light, because there's certain eras of homes where it goes to a plug, and if there's no, like, either it's not switched on or whatever,
Yeah.
that's my
Yep.
first thing. The flickering lights is one that you're going, ooh, yeah, not perfect, and especially for that first time buyer that's just slipping into this place and they're using all their down payment. They're going, I can't be rewiring an entire house. So
Yeah.
and yet
be
it
an
could
issue.
have been just one little light
100%.
bulb.
Well,
And
Yeah. The fluorescent
Even
tube
hitting
is
the-
on its way out, and that's
Yeah.
all it was, and not the whole ballast or the whole electrical panel.
This would get into the draft room floor, but just light bulbs in general. Like if you have 3 bulbs in your bathroom over your bathroom vanity and one of them's out, like replace the light.
Just replace
Or
them. Yeah.
Don't have 3 different colored bulbs. Like it just looks like there's zero pride of ownership, and then you wonder what if this is how you live, then what else is going on? If this is how you're presenting it at its best, yeah.
That's what it is. It's not just that the light bulb is really annoying to change, or the light bulb is a big deal, or it's expensive. They're not. They're cheap. It shows the pride of ownership. And if you do replace those bulbs, other buyers will think that the rest of the house is well taken care of as well. Conversely, on the other side of the coin, if the light bulb is out, or if it's just mismatched, or you've just not bothered to do things, what else have you not bothered to do, right? Change your furnace filter. Like all of those things that we talked about in the last one. Yeah, exactly. What have you not done?
All right, so let's recap here. Good draft. I think we got 3 solid teams here. I'm interested to see.
I don't think so. I think there's 2. My team's not good.
Well, what did you have on the floor, Brad?
Well, let's recap and we'll go over the floor. But
good.
so John, team 1, you have naked homeowner, you have cat pee, you got a drug lab, air fresheners everywhere, creepy dolls. I think you're gonna have some good graphic images as well. So I'm interested to see that. Team 2, Scott, smoke smell, ceiling / water stains, leaky basement foundation, mouse or evidence of mice, and hoarder house. Brad has unfinished renovations, visible sign of molds, loud neighbors. You were doing well, and then beware of dog sign with no dogs and flickering lights. I don't think it's as bad as you think.
No, those are all valid. Those are all things that I think.
But Brad, with the security side of things, it's when you see beware of your whatever your security is, and there's no system in the house, or the most visible one is just bars on the windoes like that.
Yeah,
would be
the
like,
bars.
that's not
The bars on the windows might be better.
Yeah, yours is a bit of a thinker, but it's true. And I don't mean to really pile on you here, but
I feel like it's an unconscious thing. That's maybe why I like gravitate towards it, because like when you look at the bars, you know exactly, but when you see the beware of dog one, like you might not be thinking about exactly what that means, but unconsciously it's like happening in your head.
So what do you got on the draft room floor? What did you choose that over?
Unflushed toilets.
Oh yeah.
a leaky faucet, a neglected pool in the middle of the summer when that you walk in, that pool's gross.
Nice green
and then,
algae.
Green, yeah. Along the lines of an overgrown garden, but I mean, I don't feel that strongly about that one. And then outdated or worn out carpet, especially in the bathroom.
I'm just realizing I added one in here that I wanted to draft, and I just chose hoarder house instead of it. Knob and tube wiring, aluminum wiring. People, when they see something that's not your typical wiring, that throws them off. Knob and tube can, sure, where aluminum is not as bad as people let on.
think
But
that it is. But there's a stigma there.
Aluminum, not to kind of go way off topic, but aluminum wiring, it's more so when you go to change a light switch or a light fixture or something like that, and you remove the wiring from the fixture to the wiring or from the wiring of the house. What happens is aluminum, because it's very brittle and it's also very soft, is it will nick. So you can get little nicks in it, and when you get a little nick in the wire, it'll arc. And so what you have to do if you're attaching aluminum wiring to copper wiring, you have to make sure that there's like not like a gel that kind of goes on it, like that you don't, I forget exactly what it's called, but it's like a gel that you put on there to sort of something like that to kind of stop it from arcing or just, whatever it is. So that's the thing. Aluminum wiring can be perfectly safe as long as it's inspected and done properly.
For sure. When I first got into this, I didn't know a lot about it. And I talked to a few electrician friends, and they had mentioned like most commercial buildings have aluminum wiring. It's just a matter of how it's upkept if you have renovations and you're going from copper to aluminum.
Yep.
Yeah, unkept lawn, no heat. If you're walking in and there's no heat on, you're like, well, why is that? Outdated wallpaper or just trends. If you go in and it's that sort of 70s house that's still showing 70s, not ideal, but maybe for the right person. Outdated wallpaper, and then when you get condensation in the windows or mold around the windows, you're going, what's going on here? So those are what I had on my draft room floor. What about you, John?
People just, people in bed, people, not just naked people walking around, but people actually in bed, whether they're sleeping or doing other things. You don't want somebody in the bedroom when you open up the door.
I just had the homeowners, like if they're home, that sucks.
People there in general.
Yeah, just anybody there. It's that's another thing, like drunk people. Like I've gone into a couple of houses where we didn't know that anybody was going to be there, and dude comes stumbling down the stairs, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know there was an appointment today," and I'm like, "All right, well, you can just go back up there then." Dog doo-doo on the floor. A couple of months ago, I walked into a condo and there was no dog there. They had taken the dog away for the showings, but there was like a big pile on the bathroom floor, a snake. The exotic pets. If you walk in, there's a snake and lizards.
Yeah, there's one. If there's a reptile tank and there's no reptile in it, that's
another problem. The tank, the snake, or just the evidence that there was a snake at one point. You don't know where it is. I had unflushed toilets too. Brad had that one on his. Laundry on the floor, just unkept,
messy beds,
messy sink full of dirty dishes. A panic room. Somebody who has a panic room, and last but not least, a 50 Shades room is something that I don't want to see. Scott may have a different opinion on the 50 Shades room.
Anything to get to the win. That's all I'm saying there.
Not that.
Depending on where you are, maybe if you're selling in Brooklyn, that is something that you want. But
what do you say about Brooklyn?
That's why Scott has a fourth bedroom. He has one.
That's why he lives in Brooklyn. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You guys know me, but
that's why I moved out of Brooklyn.
Yeah, I guess you don't want to move into a house and then all of a sudden, someone sends you a clip of an exotic movie and there's your kitchen or there's
exactly
look at that primary bedroom. Yeah, that wouldn't be ideal.
Hey, can I tell a really quick story, please? Are you cool with it? If I tell one last story?
Okay.
All right.
I think you're gonna do it anyways.
Yeah. Okay, so when Scott was talking about rodents, I wanted to interject here, and I didn't. But I had a interesting first for a showing last week. This agent, he's an out of town agent, has a listing here. He calls me when he needs it shown, kind of thing. He's a really nice guy. He calls me about 2 hours before my showing at this place, and he goes, "Hey Brad, just so you know, we had a showing this morning, and it's a vacant house." And he goes, "There's a dead squirrel in the basement." And I was like, "Okay, all right." And he's like, "I asked that agent, and they weren't comfortable, but could you go a little early and get rid of that dead squirrel for me?"
Just bring a shovel and a garbage bag. It's no big deal.
How much are you paying me?
I was just like, all right. He's a nice guy. I like him. So I was just like, all right. And then so I showed up maybe 15 minutes early, went downstairs, found the squirrel, no problem. Was carrying it outside just on a shovel. And my client showed up. I'm walking outside of the front, and she's just seeing me carry this dead squirrel across the driveway.
I have a lot of questions about this.
I threw it.
Sure.
Into
just
the
toss
yard?
it over the fence, whatever. Neighbor's pool.
Yeah.
Why not?
Let nature deal with it. I like it.
Anyways, I thought it was interesting. It was a first for me. I've never had to go and throw a rodent out of someone else's listing before.
Won't be the last.
I was going to say, I think it actually will be. I don't know if I've ever heard that, or that might be a once in a life. You're a good guy. Things you do.
Yeah.
Things you do. Well,
yeah.
That was a good one. Thanks for listening. If you want to keep an eye on our Instagram, we will have our voting poll up for 3 days, and we want to know who you think is the winner. And don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends. We want to grow this thing a little bit bigger. Maybe even get a sponsor on here for our wheel of names. So thank you so much. We'll chat soon, boys.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
You've been listening to the Drafting Offers Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at the Drafting Offers Podcast and vote for this week's draft champ. That's also how you can get directly in touch with us if you have any questions about this week's show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and catch every episode on Spotify. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we can't wait for you to join us again for another episode of the Drafting Offers Podcast.